Emotional well-being issues remain prevalent among the more youthful age. The mental health of young adults should be taken seriously. Seeing that it can affect lives, young adults are no exception. People need to understand that mental health matters even if they're not adult yet. Many people in today's generation take the mental health of late adolescents for granted and later on feel regret about it, especially their parents. They may criticize the chaotic nature of adolescents growing up, so society should work together in order to replace the harsh criticism with expression of concern, affirmation, and the willingness to talk about the unsaid feeling of these young adults. The psychological and social transition from adolescence to adulthood is gathering increased attention. Growing into adulthood, there's a lot to take in. Being an adult is a crucial phase in life, first of human. The depression, anxiety, and stress at this time in one's life is a source of concern. And shows that late adolescents most likely suffer from mental disorder, indicating that their symptoms began in childhood and adolescence. This horrible treatment of the society has led to poor academic performance, lack of communication with friends and family members, feelings of abandonment, homicidal thoughts, and suicide ideation are all signs of criticism of the society to these young adults.
Mental health impacts among health workers. Health workers facing stigma, those with a history of medication for mental health problems, and those reporting inadequate precautionary measures in their workplace were more at risk of developing mental health outcomes. A 2009 research found that health workers were more concerned on patients' physical health than their mental health. Working with people who self-harm gives medical trainees experience talking to young people in distress and allows them to develop a compassionate and non-judgmental approach. The qualities of a healthcare professional's evaluation can influence suicide risk detection and response, with a compassionate approach being by the far the most beneficial and potentially life-saving because patients are more likely to disclose suicidal thoughts. Effects of criticism among late adolescents. Adolescence is also even more liable to criticism as their imbalanced brain maturation makes them at risk or stronger mood changes and fewer effective emotional regulation. Identifying which adolescent subgroups are more vulnerable than others can be of great clinical relevance. Most research conducted focuses on the explanation for the declension of the mental state of young adolescents, and also the aftermath of the latter, but had not sought to explore and explain the particular accounts of young adults with a history of mental illness, thanks to negative societal criticism and judgment. The general purpose of this study is to check and understand more about the negative of daily societal criticism on the physiological state of young adolescents. Thus, this study also provide awareness of the intense internal conflicts caused by the fatalistic effects of heavy criticism and judgment, intentional or not.
So, pwede ikat. Balik. Maintenance of an identity in the face of necessary physical, mental, and interpersonal losses. Just as physical fitness help us body to stay strong, mental fitness help us to achieve and sustain a state of good mental health. When we are mentally healthy, we enjoy our life and environment and the people in it. That's why we need to maintain our interpersonal communication to learn new things and take rest.
Patients' mental health is criticized using extremely harsh words. Interdependent self-control lessens the influence of internal self-criticism on depression. They are often criticized according to their cultural virtues. Patients' mental health is criticized using extremely harsh words. This may be a cause of poor mental therapy and unfavorable treatment outcomes, so these criticisms should be discussed. Dismissal of the patient perspective and involuntary medication, added with the effects of minor negative incidents, can clarify the feelings of being in shame. Parents reported that they mostly praised their children rather than criticizing them, but parents were observed that they criticized their children approximately 3 times more often than praising them. According to Aruta A. Antazobi and Peñaranda G. In 2020, they have concluded that internal self-criticism, but not those who construe themselves as being fundamentally connected to other people, predicted to get depression. Interdependent self-control lessens the influence of internal self-criticism on depression and shows that those who have higher levels of interdependent self-control has the weaker influence of self-criticism on depression. Perhaps because mental illnesses are simply not as concrete as physical illnesses, they are often not taken as seriously. Contrary to this popular belief, mental illnesses are actual diseases that must be treated seriously as physical diseases, such as cancer or heart disease. Patients that has mental health problems often drink medicines that are not prescribed, like drugs, and it causes negative effects that might make them hurt themselves.
Barriers and facilitators to young people seeking help for mental issues. According to Rick Wood et al. 2005, they discovered that the most significant hurdles were a lack of emotional competence, negative ideas about requesting help, and stigma. That is why depression and anxiety are the most common problems adolescents are facing. Young people not seeking help. According to Gulliver et al. 2010, a prior comprehensive assessment of young people's perspectives indicated that stigma, embarrassment, difficulty recognizing problems, and a desire to cope with problems on their own are the reasons why adolescents are not seeking help.
Even though these two countries are categorized by cultural differences, Japan and UK have different cultural commonalities, and as we know that both of them are known to have a shame culture. People who live in these countries often admit to getting criticized in their lives according to their cultural virtues. While getting criticized can lead to social conformity. This negative effect damages our mental health and well-being.
Peer support groups or PSSS as bridge between people with mental illness and healthcare professionals. So we all know that we have a wide gap between the people with mental health illness, our mental illness and healthcare professional. Since we know that when someone is experiencing this kind of illness, they are consumed by anxiety and fear. The fear of talking talking about their experience and being labeled as crazy, the fear of being judged and criticized by the society, and the fear of admitting to themselves that they themselves are having that kind of illness. So as peer support groups being bridged, peer support in mental health has is also a support in mental health, and it is being characterized in a variety of ways in the literature, but it is simply defined as the assistance and support that people who have lived experience with mental illness. PSSS have been there for centuries, but it has only been in the last few decades that they have firmly evolved, matured, and became a vital element of the healthcare system. Peer support in mental health has been the subject of much debate in the literature, despite the fact that many authors have underlined the critical relevance of including peer review. Other research implies that incorporating PSSS into healthcare systems has only neutral effects, with a possible waste of money in order to inspire hope, increase involvement, quality of life, self confidence, integrity, and minimizing the load on the healthcare system. But despite all the negative feedbacks from other researchers, the PSSS or the peer support groups has been increasing the international trend into addiction, mental health services, and major sections of the existing research support of the inclusion of peer support workers in the mental care profession. It- uh, they are not discouraged by the negative feedback. Instead, they are being inspired to make more or more to recruit more peer to support the people with mental illness. Only with the collaborative efforts and continued support and participation from all healthcare practitioners, managers, and other stakeholders would a comprehensive PSSS in healthcare be feasible and maintainable. And as a ordinary people of the society, we should have this kind of mindset. Instead of criticizing and judging those people who have this mental illness, we should embrace them and help them accept that this is the reality, that this has happened to them. And by helping them to get a consult from medical doctors or from professionals. And before we will end this video montage, we have prepared also a video about breaking the stigma about the people with mental illness.
You know that feeling where your thoughts scare you or make life tough? Sometimes it feels like no one else in the world has those thoughts or feelings. No one seems to know how difficult it is to deal with your feelings. And it's not easy to share your deepest secrets. You might think something is wrong with you. Or you might worry what other people think. And all of that makes your thoughts and feelings worse. Our culture has created this environment of shame. Until the 1960s, society sent people away if they had challenges managing their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Over time, we learned that we didn't have to be afraid. We learned how to help people get better. We became hopeful. But there are remnants of those images in our culture today, which is why some people still feel uncomfortable talking about it. The stigma has taken new forms too. With more people all the time, it can seem like the world is telling us it's not okay to be anything but perfect. The truth is, everyone has thoughts or feelings that can be hard to deal with. So why do we make it so difficult on ourselves by judging others who could be going through the same challenges we are? What if, in labels, we saw people who are struggling and could be there for them so they didn't feel so alone? What if we looked past our fear of mental health and started to talk about it in a constructive way? What if, as a society, we used empowering words and healthy images to help people feel supported? Maybe then, more of us could feel comfortable telling others when we're having a hard time. Maybe more people would get the help they need. And maybe one day we won't have to talk separately about mental health and physical health, but just health. The truth is, each of us has the power to change our culture. Will you join us? Share this video with a kid, your neighbor, a friend, and help us break the stigma of mental health.
that's all for our video montage. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have learned something about our topic, which is mental health perception, society's open criticism upon late adolescence. And don't forget, we should embrace those people with mental illness and not judge them.